The east-west freeway handles about 160,000 vehicles per day. As the $48 million resurfacing of I-94 continues in the eastbound lanes this summer, much of that traffic, like last year, must be diverted from the freeway. 1 in 5 overall, more than 1/3 during rush hours.
Last year, on a 24-hour basis, when work was being done on the westbound lanes of the traffic, over 32,000 vehicles were diverted off of the freeway system. And of that total, we found about 94% of that stayed on the local street system.
Those numbers will be repeated this year, meaning traffic will again more than double on many major city streets. With last year's experiences, the city is ready.
Rather than taking a guess and making modifications in traffic control where we think something may happen, we've got a pretty good idea where the traffic is going to be coming from and going to, so that should make it a little bit easier for us this year.
In 1998, we expect that congestion would be greater than in 1997. A couple of reasons for that. The first is that people traveling eastbound in the morning have a finite time in which to get to work, and so as they approach the downtown area, we expect that congestion will be greater in length. The second is that when you look at a map of the area of Milwaukee, the streets start to converge, something like a funnel effect. And so there are fewer options for people to choose in going downtown. All of the work in the eastbound roadway will begin in mid-April, unlike in 1997 where we staggered the start of the work. And we expect that through a shorter time schedule that the work should be done sometime in August.
In 1998, as in 1997, we need the cooperation of all the traveling public in this corridor in order to make this project a success. We need 40% of the travelers to divert to another time, another mode, or another means. And that's going to be our goal again in 1998, to keep everybody moving in the corridor.
During the project, 1 eastbound lane will be closed full-time and 2 eastbound lanes will be closed evenings from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Ramp closings will further restrict access. The southbound Highway 41 ramp to eastbound 94 will be closed throughout the construction period. The southbound Highway 45 ramp to eastbound 94 and the Zoo interchange will be closed for a month, sometime during the road work.
The one thing that we pay particular attention to is the way the traffic is going to be impacting the businesses and the residents in particular. We don't want the traffic diverting through residential areas, obviously, and if we can keep the congestion down on the local street system, on the arterial street system, the traffic will have lesser tendency to be driving around the heavily congested areas through residential streets.
The city of Milwaukee is getting a $160,000 payment from the state to pay for city expenses related to the work. Among them, retiming many traffic signals to keep traffic moving on arterial streets, adding left turn lanes, eliminating parking on some streets to add travel lanes, adding new pavement markings and traffic signs. And there'll be continual monitoring.
We'll be doing something like that again this year when the construction starts and throughout the program to continually monitor where the traffic is going and to see if everything that we have done is handling that traffic or if we have to actually do something more to help get that traffic through.
Milwaukee also takes other steps to keep traffic moving, delaying paving projects and not issuing permits for street work.
It may seem minor, but again, when you keep a telephone company truck, for instance, out of the roadway working in a manhole, that reduces a roadway from 2 lanes to 1 lane. It creates a bottleneck in there. And if we can keep them out during the peak periods when traffic is coming through there, it's a tremendous help again too. And all the utilities have been very cooperative with us in doing that type of thing.
State money will also help the city beef up police patrols and traffic law enforcement.
To make sure that motorists do behave the way you'd want them to do it in your own neighborhood. Last year, nearly 1,700 citations were written by the officers working this duty. They also assisted in traffic control 140 times. They responded to 134 crashes along the detour routes or routes nearest this area. As far as the Safety Commission goes, we will be putting out additional school crossing guards. We will also be giving messages to schools, giving printed materials to children. Hopefully they'll be taken home. Their basic pedestrian safety rules, be they coloring sheets or other messages about how to cross the street safely.
The state has flooded the area with advertising and brochures to tell commuters and businesses about carpooling, alternate routes to downtown, ramp schedules, bus information, and park and ride lot locations. You can keep updated on the construction by calling the East-West hotline 548-5684, by checking the Department of Transportation website at dot.wi.us, as well as local TV and radio stations.
Just be patient on the roadway system. We have made the improvements necessary to hopefully get you through the city in a reasonable time frame. But when you're driving on city streets, remember, you're not on the freeway system.
And remember, it will all be over in August, delaying the need for reconstruction of the freeway for at least 10 more years. Not long ago, Milwaukee's Pabst Theater got a name change. Not exactly a new name. It's now the Captain Frederick Pabst Theater, to honor the man rather than the brewery. The former town of Lake Water Tower was renamed to honor Robert Anderson, alderman in the district for 32 years. The name of Martin Schreiber, another 32-year veteran, is now on the Hawthorne Glen Nature Center building. A 7-member Citizens Advisory Committee was set up to make the recommendations. There was a problem on the renaming of 7th Street between Clybourne to State after astronaut and Milwaukee native James Lovell.
You either have to be dead or 70 years of age, and he isn't, so they had to make a little extra provision that notwithstanding the ordinance that they still name it after him, since the building itself over here is now named for Jim Lovell. Basically, the city decided that it would be a good idea to have a group of citizens determine whether or not name changes were proper, that the individuals named were of substantial importance to the community and made a benefit to the community.
Recommendations come from groups and individuals. Some Riverside High School students petitioned to name a street for Joshua Glover, a runaway slave, next to the street named for abolitionist Sherman Booth, who freed him from jail. On the south side, residents petitioned the city to rename a section of 16th Street after Cesar Chavez, former head of the Migrant Farm Worker Union. A number of guidelines have been set up regarding name changes. In the case of a street, a petition must be signed by more than 50% of the property owners. Each change requires final approval by the Common Council.
A background and history of the community helps, of course. We have one of Milwaukee's top historians, John Gerda, who can always lend a little bit of historical knowledge to any of our findings. It's just, did somebody do something worthy of naming a street after them or renaming a street after them?
The Citizens Committee was involved in the renaming of the Milwaukee Municipal Building after former Mayor Frank Zeidler. Before the advisory group was formed, recommendations went right to the aldermen. Zeidler is the 14th of our 37 mayors to have something named after them. Most people are acquainted with Meyer Festival Park along the lakefront, named for Henry Meyer, father of Summerfest, mayor for a record 28 years. Zeidler at Union Square at 3rd and Michigan, named for Frank's brother, Carl Zeidler, our original singing mayor who was killed in World War II. That high-rise span called the Hone Bridge, named after socialist Daniel Webster Hone, who served as mayor for 24 years. Our first mayor and a founder of the city was Solomon Juneau. Among things bearing his name, the lakefront park, a high school, and the massive bell in the City Hall Tower. Another founder, Byron Kilbourne, has a park, elementary school, and an avenue to keep his name alive, and like Juneau, a hall in the Mecca Auditorium. Walker Street and Walker's Point bear the name of the founder of the South Side. George Walker also has a middle school named after him. And then a number of streets after 19th century mayors. The renaming of a portion of North 3rd Street after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also predated the Citizen Advisory Committee. That debate led to its formation.
We've got a diverse element within the committee that can then look at any particular proposed change with as broad an outlook as possible.
If you've got any ideas, name changes must be submitted in writing to the city clerk. But be advised, city law says existing names may be changed only in exceptional cases and only when compelling reasons for the change are evident. Hillside Terrace is located just north of the downtown area. Back in the days when Hillside was among the most run-down of Milwaukee's public housing developments, it had many problems. People didn't want to live there. Something had to be done.
It would take over 100 showings to a unit before one would take a unit here at Hillside. And for Milwaukee, that was a devastating problem. People really felt this was unsafe. This is not where they wanted to have their family grow up. The appearance of the development, all those led to a very bad situation for us that we wanted to change.
And change it they did, with a $44 million federally funded renovation. It's scheduled for completion in July. More than a dozen apartment buildings were demolished. Exteriors and interiors of the rest were changed. 12 mini neighborhoods were created. Population density was lowered. Streets were opened and more green spaces created. Vacancies are no longer a problem. There is now a waiting list. And the residents have changed, more self-sufficient, more involved.
The bricks and mortar, the way the appearance can speak for itself. But what we have seen is people going to work, people taking pride in themselves and their families, children more actively participating in the Boys and Girls Club, parents going back to school and working on computer programs. And this building that we're in really was part of what we wanted to create, a place where residents could come and work on improving themselves after they were going to work. One of the things that we try to say very early on is that work is very important. And we try to create in this building avoid reasons why people couldn't go to work. So if you needed a daycare, we have it on site. If you needed a health, we have a clinic on site. If you needed to work on your appearance, and we have someone that can work with you. We have a vocational counselor on the staff. So there really will be no excuse. Transportation, we'll figure that out. And so we set out to say work is important, and we created the wall of work. And what we wanted to do is that every month as somebody went to work, we took their picture at their work site, and then we put it up on the wall. Again, to reinforce that image that work is important and that you're much more of a contributing member of a society if you have a job. But also for kids and other relatives to see the importance of it, see you up on the wall in what you do. Because it also serves as a career path for children who also come into this building quite a bit. What we've seen is that in public housing in Milwaukee in 1997, income to residents was raised by $3 million. We know of no place in this country where that's happened.
As a former resident and as a present resident, I think it's fantastic.
The new Hillside and its Family Resource Center are especially gratifying to Ann Wilson. The well-known community activist chaired the Milwaukee Housing Authority when the massive rehabilitation project began and is now manager of the center.
If you're not from Milwaukee or you don't know a lot about Milwaukee, you would not know that this was a public housing development. And that's exciting. That's one thing I've always wanted to see, that public housing people and the residents who live here and the buildings would not be any different than any other community. So that's the part that I like so much. You see a total different way in the way residents act now than you used to see when I was here before, because they're so proud. And we've always, by the way, been proud of where we live, but now there's really truly something to be proud of. So needless to say, I think it's the greatest thing in the nation.
As was mentioned, the Family Resource Center provides a one-stop location for a number of services, all of which convinced families to move into Hillside.
So you can come from up the street and drop your children off at the daycare. Then if you have older children, they can go to the Boys and Girls Club and participate in positive activities, from computers to African dance, to history programs, to learning programs, to tutoring programs. Then if by chance, while you're doing that, you tend to not feel so well, you can catch the elevator to the second floor and go to the clinic. We're very fortunate in Hillside, in public housing in Milwaukee in general, and Hillside in particular, because there are a lot of things that people living 3 blocks down the street don't have, that we have. Very few people 5 blocks from here have someone who's sitting in there like we have our employment specialist today, taking applications to go to an employer where you can get a job.
We have had visitors, probably not a month, probably not a week goes by, and where somebody from throughout the country comes to Hillside to see how we did it. And they're taking the message back. Hillside is very unique. HUD officials say there's only one Milwaukee where this has been done.
As I said, public housing has always got a bad rap. And Milwaukee has had an opportunity, and one of the first in the nation, to finish a Hope 6 grant. We'll soon be through, to prove that it's no different than any other place, given a chance and a few dollars.
And certainly we're working on another grant over at Park Lawn. And that's really our next venture that we really want to go into, is apply again for Park Lawn and do some things there. A little bit different than here, but some of the same concepts will also apply. And that's sort of our next opportunity that we hope the federal government will see, that working with Milwaukee, it's a good deal for them, and it's really good for Milwaukee.
Well, you know, Mother Nature starts us out with a really good quality of water most of the year, and we use chemical processes and physical processes to make that better. And with the addition of ozone, we have a new chemical at our disposal that's a really wonderful chemical. It's going to disinfect the water really well, and we're going to go from very, very good finished water to great finished water for our customers.
Even the hardiest bacteria, viruses, and parasites in our drinking water, microscopic organisms such as Cryptosporidium, will be destroyed or disabled by the ozone disinfection systems going into operation at both Milwaukee water treatment plants.
This is the largest retrofit ozonation plant in the world at this time. There are a number more plants going in around the country because this is becoming the technology that everyone is interested in. But right now, at this time, this is the largest single plant between Howard Avenue and the Linwood site.
Prior to startup of the Howard Avenue ozone disinfection system this month, we toured the plant to find out about its 3 main operations: ozone generators to produce the gas, ozone contactors to diffuse the gas through the water, and ozone destructors to prevent the gas from entering the atmosphere.
Where we're standing here right now is the ozonation generator area. These 3 units in this area are ozone generators. What the ozone generators do, Tom, is they transfer liquid oxygen, which is O2, into an O3. It kills all the bacteria and the germs that are in the water, specifically the one that we're all talking about these days, and that's Cryptosporidium. The process is very simple. It just attacks the bugs in the water itself, and it just kills them. And after they are killed, they will leave this facility here and move right into the normal treatment process. A good example of what happens here is this is a gas that we are pumping into the contactors, O3. And if you have a fish tank at home, you have the diffusers on the bottom, which bubble the oxygen and keep the air clean. The same thing is occurring here. The water that is brought into this facility travels through a contactor. Here at Howard, there are 2 contactors. They're about 220 feet long and 30 feet wide. The water serpentines over and under a series of baffle walls from one end to the other. It takes approximately 20 to 25 minutes to get from one end to the other. Also involved in this process is we cannot obviously put any ozone or let any ozone leave this facility. So what we do is we destroy the ozone in one of 2 ways. In the ozone that's remaining, or the residual ozone that's remaining in the water itself, we attack that with hydrogen peroxide. That again takes the O3, which is a very unstable compound, and turns it back into an O2 compound, which has become stable. The other way is the gas, and we destroy that through what we call ozone destruct units, which sounds like it should be. The gas is pumped into a catalyst. The catalyst absorbs the ozone, and consequently it's just pumped out into the atmosphere back as oxygen.
The ozone disinfection systems are the third major plant improvements. First, all old sand and gravel filters at both plants were renovated. The mix was replaced with a layer of silica topped with crushed coal. New filter drains were installed at 32 filter beds at Linwood and the 8 beds at the Howard plant. In addition, water pipes to the Texas Avenue pumping station were extended by almost 1 mile into Lake Michigan.
This is going to give us state-of-the-art facilities to treat that water with. We always had good water. The facility upgrade is going to make it even better. Along with the ozone, there are some other improvements that are going on at the plants that are a bit less glamorous that will take about another 1.5 years to finish after we get the ozone online, and they're going to help us make it even better.
About 200 U.S. water plants depend on ozone for disinfection or to eliminate chemical compounds, even though it's a problem in the atmosphere.
An example I'll give you is we as humans are made up of a lot of water, which is H2O. So are organic materials such as cryptosporidium. What happens is the ozone will take that water that's in us or in the cryptosporidium, which is H2O, and attack that and make it unstable or basically kill it.
As we mentioned, water leaving the plant will not contain any ozone, and every safety precaution has been taken in the Milwaukee water treatment plants.
This facility has got a lot of safety features in. It shuts itself down if any leaks occur. We have constant monitoring of the ozone, both in the gas and the water, so that no ozone escapes from this facility. It's a very safe facility from that respect.
Although ozone will be the new weapon in the fight against waterborne microscopic enemies, the 820,000 customers in Milwaukee and 10 suburbs probably won't notice any change.
Basically, we add chlorine at the plant in 2 places right now. With the addition of the ozone, we're going to be removing one of those chlorination points and using ozone instead. So we'll be using the ozone at the head of the plant, and we'll be using chlorine again just before it leaves the plant to go into the distribution system. The customer will still have that same amount of chlorine at their tap when they turn the water on, because we need that to ensure that the microorganisms continue to be disinfected as the water goes from the plant to their houses. But once that ozone is on, they shouldn't notice it. They shouldn't notice any difference at all.
Water customers of the Howard Avenue plant begin to receive ozone-treated water this month. The system at the Linwood water treatment plant is scheduled to begin operating in July.